But also watching the Senate AI hearing closely, where tech CEOs like OpenAI Sam Altman are on the Hill. Our next guest, of course, outlining how to play the sector in his AI revolution. He's bullish on Alphabet, Meta, and Palantir, to name a few. Dan Ives, Wedbush Securities global head of technology research, joins us at Post 9 today in your Thursday best. What are you watching here today out of the hearing? I mean, we heard some interesting sound bites from Emily Wilkins just a moment ago, sort of with congressmen basically saying, look, like things have changed even dramatically. If we would have had this hearing last year and put in some kind of legislation or guardrails, it would have been dramatically different now.
Look, the reality is that the technology is going 100 miles an hour in a left lane in a Ferrari.
Sure.
The regulatory is in a right lane going 35 miles an hour. And I think that it's really going to be more about self-regulation, but the use cases are exploding. It's something we've talked about in the show, a lot. This spending, that regulatory is not going to change. And a lot of it's going to be self-regulatory. I mean, you're going to hear, obviously, from Altman and everyone else, and you're going to see a lot of consolidation. And and I don't think regulatory is going to stop that.
And I would love to sort of also circle you back to the other thing we're watching in D.C. as we await sort of the discussion out of the Oval Office with what's going to happen with UK, whether it's a trade deal, agreement. I mean, how we know that their trade relationship is relatively small when we're talking about the likes of China or India, Vietnam, something else. But how are tech companies watching the words and parsing through what we hear? I mean, how important will those be for the bigger deals?
I think everyone's waiting. It's India. It's Vietnam, and ultimately it's China. And obviously this weekend in terms of best in what we see there. I mean, when it comes to UK, I mean, obviously a small, I'll call it a baby step in the right direction. But I mean, tech companies that I talk to, and we've all the supply chain stuff, it's all about China. I mean, that right now, that's the hearts and lungs. I mean, UK is nice, but it's not moving the needle.
Well, the suspension of the diffusion rule may be a positive, obviously, for the likes of NVIDIA. I just want to come back to something you just said, Dan, which is you expect consolidation. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's specific. When I look, like, in terms of big tech, specifically on the software side, I think you're going to see a lot of small and even emerging private players potentially get bought. You look at Microsoft, what I believe Alphabet, even despite the regulatory, you're going to look at names like IBM and others. I mean, David, it's my view that, like, the strong are going to get stronger. And the technology, even when we've seen it in earnings season, this is an AI revolution. Tariffs are not stopping it. And I think over the next decade, companies want to make sure that they are well positioned when it comes to consolidation.
Yeah, there's no right, and of course, so many of the private companies that are fairly well funded, but you could conceivably see them end up in larger hands. I am curious to get your reaction to those comments yesterday from Eddie Q at Apple, which sent shares of Google down. You don't cover Google, actually.
No, we do. Yeah.
Wait, you do? It's not on your cover.
So I do. I do cover Google
because you cover everything. So I would be shocked if you didn't.
Sure.
No, it's.
But I know you cover Apple because we've come on and talked about it so often. What do you make of the comments, and/or it gets us back to sort of the AI strategy at the company itself of Apple?
Yeah. Look, I think the comments a bit shot across the bow in terms of look, Apple, their own AI strategy. I mean, they're trying to basically I think ultimately own more and more of it. When you look at the Google relationship, look, my view is that the bark's worse than the bite here. I mean, if you look at search queries, all of our data that we've done, I mean, it gets us more and more bullish. We don't believe this is the end of search. I also think that they're going to pivot his business models, obviously a lot of regulatory scrutiny. Look, for Apple, if you look where they are, I mean, they got to really establish what they believe is going to be their future. AI is going to be part of their future. But Google's going to be a huge part of that. I don't view that negatively as maybe the indication was that we saw for Alphabet.
So you think that was an overreaction yesterday?
I think that was a way overreaction. But we're in a white knuckle period.
Sure.
In terms of everything that you've talked about in terms of on the regulatory front. Now you have this sort of shot across the bow that's unexpected from Apple, which is obviously their core partner. So I think right now it's an agita period, but it doesn't make us any less bullish in terms of our view for Alphabet and just overall for big tech, because everything we've seen, the use cases are exploding, the spending's accelerating.
Yeah, all right, let's get back to your famous channel checks there and the likes. I mean, I am curious, Dan, because we are waiting for these agentic AI or AI agents, the agentic age, so to speak, to really pick up, to start to see use in the enterprise that we can point to, or a CEO can point to and say, hey, I just got my margins up such and such basis points as a result of the efficiencies. When does that start happening?
I think you look at Palantir, to me, that is the case study. That is front and center, showing what I believe we're going to see over the coming years. In terms of all the use cases, U.S. commercial business exploded. I mean, right now we have 85 use cases. A year ago, we had 10. And I think what we're starting to see more and more is that it's across verticals: healthcare, financials, government, and obviously, in terms of retail and a lot of others. And I think that's what ServiceNow saw. I think you can see with IBM, we were at their analyst day, what they talked about, I think everything Arvind's doing, all the hyperscalers. On this show for years, we've talked about the revolution.
Yes.
And obviously it was about the godfather of AI, Jensen NVIDIA. But I think now it's starting to happen as part of our AI 30. The software names, cybersecurity, internet, it's starting to spread. And tariffs are not going to change this fourth industrial revolution.
In fact, they may do the opposite. I mean, to the extent you're getting price pressure in some way, you're going to look for efficiency. It may move you even more aggressively towards AI.
Exactly. And I think that's why this was such a pivotal earnings season, because if you look at the spending, and we talk about in our channel checks, the spending's accelerated. And if there was a time that they were going to put a brake on it and you were going to actually see a step back, it was going to be this quarter. And that's why it's my view, it's 15% of budget. In terms of when I look at AI, you go back a year ago, it's 1-2%. Can't stop that train, whether it's a hearing in D.C., whether it's tariffs. I mean, this AI revolution, in my opinion, it's another Jalen Brunson moment for tech.
Genie's out of the bottle.
It means what, a last-second bucket to win the game? Is that what we're talking about?
And again,
Jalen Brunson.
Counted out, but then you never know what's going to happen
really
when they get the W.
Mikal Bridges moments in the fourth quarter yesterday, Dan.
I like that. I might use that.
Okay, you can take it. That's yours. Nobody's going to know who he is. Yeah.